What's cracking, yo? Welcome back to Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. It is reaction video time, and back with another one from the Making the Case series. The first and only Making the Case series we ever did, or Making the Case video rather, from the series that we've ever did was Larry Bird. So this would be the second one, and it is Bill Russell making the case for the greatest of all time. This video is recommended to us by viewer slash subscriber BD. So BD, I appreciate you for the recommendation. Now, Bill Russell, I have a general understanding of his impact on the NBA, his accolades, his accomplishments, even some of his off-court contributions and things like that. But I can honestly say I've never really sat down, put Bill Russell and his career under a microscope and just comb through everything and get all the possible context and get all the stories and all the extra tidbits. So that's one reason I'm extremely excited about getting into this more. And while I feel like I know probably more about Bill Russell than any casual NBA fan, I still think there's so much more to learn about the great Bill Russell. All right. Bill Russell came out of San Francisco, drafted in 1956 in the first round with the second overall pick. Played center, as you all know, and at the time, centers were more so known for their offensive output, but Bill Russell was a defensive juggernaut. And while he could have scored more, he didn't, and really just cared about playing within the confines of the offense and really being a leader and helping his teammates move along with him. He was actually drafted by the Atlanta Hawks and then acquired in a trade with the Boston Celtics. In his years of playing, in his 13 years of playing, 2 of those years were as a player coach for the Boston Celtics. But overall, his coaching career was from 1966 to 1988, which included stints with the Sonics and the Sacramento Kings, as well as the Boston Celtics. Another thing I would like to add to that is that Bill Russell was actually the first ever African-American coach in the National Basketball Association. Just running down some of his accolades here. He's an 11-time NBA champion. 2 of those championships came as a player coach, and in that he also had 8 straight NBA championships. So you want to talk about dynasty? Have fun. 5-time NBA most valuable player, that would tie with Michael Jordan and only be one less than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's 6. 12-time NBA All-Star, NBA All-Star MVP, 3-time All-NBA First Team, 8 All-NBA Second Team, NBA All-Defensive First Team, 1 selection. I'm curious to see who got it the other years where he didn't, or maybe that award wasn't recognized till later. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. If you let me know, hit me with it in the comment section, please. 4-time NBA Rebounding Champion, and I would also like to add that Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell was the first player to ever average at least 20 rebounds for an entire season, and for his entire career, his 13 years, he averaged over 22 rebounds. So put that into perspective. Bill Russell was also known for his contributions and social justice and social inequality. He was a profound leader of the Black Power movement. So I am really excited to get into this and learn more about Bill Russell. Also, I heard the guy was just an amazing person and had one of the best personalities, like an extremely jovial guy from what I hear. Very sweet personality. Anyway, rest in peace to Bill Russell. Let's get into this Making the Case.
Basketball is special. The size of the court and the lack of pads or helmets give fans the most intimate experience of a team sport that exists. And because of the different styles that basketball allows for, players develop their own distinct identities and signature styles through their creativity, flair, and athleticism. And although no player succeeds alone, the scoring volume and two-way nature of the sport give individual stars a nearly unprecedented amount of control over the flow and outcome of a game. For this reason, players are constantly compared to their peers and to the legends of the past in order to answer the most hotly contested question in the sport: who's the greatest to ever do it? For many, the question is redundant. They believe in only one right answer: their answer. Others might have their own personal stance, but acknowledge one or two alternatives. But I believe that there's much more nuance to the question of greatness and more answers to it than you might think. By my count, there are 8 players in NBA history that have a substantial claim as the GOAT. It's a subjective thing though. I can't give you a definitive answer. All I can do is make the argument. So today, I'll be making the case for Bill Russell as the greatest basketball player of all time.
That beat go hard though. It's like produced by Ninth Wonder. If you know who Ninth Wonder is, let me know in the comments section.
Imagine what I'm trying to do. I'm speaking to the most data-driven, analytically obsessed, statistically fixated generation of basketball fans that has ever lived. And I'm
already hitting the pause button. Ain't that the truth? All analytics these days.
Not just speaking to you, I'm making the argument that the greatest player of all time is one who, rather than scoring in high volume or with top-notch efficiency, excelled at defense, an aspect of the game that went virtually unrecorded for this player's entire career, an aspect which, even today, the most advanced metrics still provide an incomplete picture of. More than that, though, this player excelled in the wrinkles of basketball, manipulating the fabric of the game into his own design. This player is remembered for his unparalleled ability to lead, to inspire, to foster cohesion and self-sacrifice in favor of loftier goals, to dance along the line that blurs team and brotherhood. These empirically irrelevant skills resulted in the most successful professional sports dynasty in North American history. To begin making Russell's case, I want you to remember these legendary words from NFL head coach Herm Edwards. You play to win the game. It doesn't matter who you are, what your abilities are, what level you're playing at, what kind of sport you're playing, or who you're up against. You play to win the game. Remember that as we talk about Bill Russell. You play to win the game. Because when you look at sports and competition at its fundamental level, it is that simple. So, did he win? Hell yes, he won. In his 13 NBA seasons, Bill Russell captured 11 titles, more than any other professional team athlete of note. 8 of them came consecutively. I'll come right out and say it. If you want the GOAT conversation to be about winning, oh yeah, this guy had a great career, but this other guy just wanted to win more. This guy wanted to win more than anything. That's why he's better. I want winners. If that's the way we're going to do this, then you have to crown Bill Russell. But was Russell an awe-inspiring athletic specimen? Nope. For that kind of player, you look to guys like Wilt and Shaq and LeBron. Was he a transcendent scorer? Like I said earlier, no. Players like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were in another stratosphere in that department. Here's what Bill Russell was. He was a natural athlete at 6'10". He glided across the court with the balance and...
Pause. I don't know if they're going to bring this up, but I forgot to mention that. Bill Russell was a ridiculous athlete. Like, ridiculous. In fact, he was like borderline Olympian in like high jumping or long jumping and other things. Like, this dude was an athlete. Like, if he wasn't Olympian level, he was damn near Olympian level. And even in his rookie year, he started with the Celtics late. He joined the team later in the season because of his contributions to the Olympic team. I forgot to mention that. And like he said, he wasn't a crazy scorer. He only averaged like 15 points per game on his career. Maybe shooting mid-40s. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to throw that in there. I'm here to watch. Let's do it.
Grace of a 6'3" guard. Vertically, he was springy and had the uncanny ability to seemingly jump twice in the same instant. He was strong, but surprisingly lean and gangly, 220 pounds of all arms and legs. He had a level of anticipation and awareness that was second to none. Put it all together and you get the second highest rebounding average of any player ever. You also get the most domineering defender in basketball history. Historically, Russell was a basketball pioneer in an almost literal sense. In high school and college, he was told constantly that to be a great defender, you had to keep your feet on the floor at all times, so as to afford yourself the most maneuverability possible. Russell refuted these ideas, and instead leapt emphatically to meet defenders around the rim and block their shots into the arms of his teammates. Guys from back then described Russell as an almost nightmarish entity, someone who would lurk in plain sight and strike without warning. He would wage psychological warfare on his enemies through intimidation and exude an aura that demanded an equal amount of fear and respect. He could guard behemoths at his position like Wilt and Nate Thurmond, but he could also switch onto guards with an insignificant drop in proficiency. Moreover, at the NBA level, with Red Auerbach's help, Russell became the linchpin in the Boston Celtics' patented fast break offense. Russell would contest a shot, secure the rebound, and push the ball forward to his streaking teammates so as to attack a defense on its heels. I know that doesn't sound like much today. The fast break is a part of every offensive system in the NBA and has been for decades. But Russell deserves credit as being the anchor of the NBA's most prolific defense and for being the cornerstone of an innovative offensive system. Wait, Bill Russell was an innovative offensive player? But I thought he had sub-average offensive numbers. His shooting percentages weren't very good. He didn't average that many points. What are you getting at, Clayton? The truth, my good man. But seriously, free your mind from the idea that a great offensive player can only be the guy who puts the ball through the net. Russell's court vision and passing ability were the keys to the engine of the Boston offense. You don't care though. His stats weren't good, and that's that. So let's talk about statistics. The important statistics in basketball are supposed to be points scored, rebounds, and assists. But nobody keeps statistics on other important things. The good fake you make that helps your teammates score. The bad pass you force the other team to make. The good long pass you make that sets up another pass, that leads to a score.
Hockey assists.
The way you recognize when one of your teammates has a hot hand that night and you give up your own shot so that he can take it. All of those things. Those were some of the things we excelled in that you won't find in the statistics. There was only one statistic that was important to us. Won and lost. Whoops, sorry. I slipped into first person there because I was reading a Bill Russell quote. As if my job wasn't hard enough, stats like steals and blocks, defensive stats, didn't start getting recorded until the mid-70s. The only stat I can give you is defensive win shares. Games that a team won that can be attributed in part or in full to a player's defensive contributions. No one has yet to come within even 80% of matching Bill Russell's 13-year career total in that category. And now we're back to winning. The most important virtue of an athlete, right? It's how this debate always goes. 3 rings is more than 2. 5 rings is more than 3. 6 rings is more than 5. So why isn't 11 the largest number? I'll tell you why. There are 3 main reasons that people don't acknowledge the most decorated champion of all time as the greatest of all time. In the order I'll talk about them, they are that Wilt was better, that his era was weak, and that his team was stacked. First up, we have his friend, rival, and antithesis, Wilt Chamberlain. The careers of Wilt and Russell overlapped for about 10 years, and in those 10 years, the two became harbingers of the NBA as we know it. Their friendship, play styles, size, and championship disparity painted the two as inverses of each other. They are immortalized together as 2 sides of the same coin. Because they played in a bygone era, many basketball fans take to all-time leaderboards and the pages of record books to gain a better understanding of these 2 men. Statistically, the comparison is a no contest. Wilt was and is a basketball anomaly. Wilt scored the most points in a game ever, had the most points in a season, remains the league's all-time rebounder, logged the most rebounds in a game, and so on. And not only did Wilt set all of these records, but he put the bar so far out of reach that we'll see colonies on Mars before we see all of his records surpassed. How do I even begin to suggest that Russell is the superior basketball player? Russell played in the same era, and so you'd think he would benefit from the same era advantages like Wilt did. But where Wilt averaged 30 points a game, Russell averaged just a paltry 15. Their field goal percentages are similarly lopsided. Only in rebounding do the two seem comparable, with staggering averages and untouchable career totals. There's really no argument, right? Well, the two played 143 total games against each other. That's almost 15% of all the games that Bill Russell ever played in. In the 94 regular season games they went head-to-head, Russell's team won 57 times. In the 49 playoff games that they saw each other, Russell's team won 29 times. But hey, those are team records. Even looking at the box scores of those games and playoff series show that Wilt got his no matter what. Surely there must be some way to award a player for his individual expertise. Something like the MVP award, the most valuable player, the player who adds the most to his team and gives them the best chance to win, regardless of the players that he plays with. That should be worth something, right? Especially considering that, until 1980, the MVP award was voted on by the league's players. If Russell's teams were so unfairly stacked, surely his peers would see this and understand that he was simply the beneficiary of a rigged system, right? And they'd give Wilt the award year in and year out because he was the best individual, right? Right. Look, Wilt won 4 MVP awards during his career. But it's not as many as Russell. Russell won the NBA's most prestigious award, signifying the most valuable individual talent in the NBA, 5 times. The rest of the NBA looked at the Boston Celtics, however talented they might have been, and recognized that it was Bill Russell who made them tick, and they had no problem voting him over Wilt. You want to know Russell's favorite award that he ever won in the NBA? His 1962 NBA MVP award. Why? Because that was the season Oscar Robertson averaged a triple-double. And it was the year that Wilt averaged 50 points a game. Russell averaged 18 points and 29 rebounds.
Damn.
Wilt's Warriors would take the Celtics to a Game 7 in that year's playoffs, only to lose in the game's dying seconds. Russell held the Wilt Chamberlain that had averaged 50 points that season to just 28 in the most important game of the season. And in the finals, the Celtics would find themselves in another Game 7 against the Lakers, this time in an overtime period that would decide the champion. Sam Jones and Bill Russell combined for 9 points in overtime, giving Boston their 4th championship in a row. Russell would end the game with 30 points and 44 rebounds. And now, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I wasn't alive to see Bill Russell or Wilt Chamberlain. There's a level of context I'll never have because I didn't live through that era. So why don't we hear from some of the people who did? Jerry West, Chamberlain's teammate from 1969 to 1973, said, "I don't want to rap Wilt because I believe only Russell was better, and I really respect what Wilt did. But I have to say, he wouldn't adjust to you. You had to adjust to him." 1975 Finals MVP and Hall of
That's the LeBron James thing right there. You have to adjust to LeBron James. No matter what LeBron tells you, you're going to take the keys from the franchise. It's time for you to step up. Yeah, that's all nice to hear, but you know you ain't giving them keys up, boy. Cut it out. Never played in the system. Always been the system. Let's continue.
Famer Rick Barry said, "I'll say what most players feel, which is that Wilt is a loser. He is terrible in big games. When it comes down to the closing minutes of a tough game, an important game, he doesn't want the ball. He doesn't want any part of the pressure. It is at these times that greatness is determined, and Wilt doesn't have it." Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1990 wrote this, an open letter to Wilt Chamberlain. "It's been several years now, Wilt, that you have been criticizing my career with your friends in the press. After any tough test in which you didn't do well, you blamed those around you and quit. People will remember that I worked with my teammates and helped us win. You will be remembered as a whining crybaby and a quitter, stats and all." Stories abound about Wilt's infatuation with statistics, from correcting scorekeepers to scolding teammates for not making baskets that would have counted towards his assist totals. In 1965, the Warriors felt that Wilt was toxic and decided to trade him. One of the prospective landing spots for the Big Dipper was none other than the Los Angeles Lakers, where Jerry West and Elgin Baylor desperately needed someone to throw at Russell. The Lakers management decided to poll the players on whether the team should trade for Chamberlain. The poll resulted in a 9-2 decision against bringing Wilt to the team. Is it fair to call Wilt a loser? No. But did he make his teammates better? Rarely. Wilt played in 9 Game 7s. Russell played in 10. Wilt lost 5 of his. Russell never did. Okay, but back then there were like 8 teams, nobody was very tall, there was just a bunch of scrawny non-athletes. Russell couldn't hold Joel Embiid's jockstrap today. If you abide by the "yeah, he was good for his time, but he couldn't hang today" mindset, I need you to be consistent. I need you to acknowledge that across the board. You've painted yourself into a corner that states that the greatest athlete will always be the newest one. That Aroldis Chapman is, historically, a greater baseball player than Babe Ruth. Because Chapman would smoke Babe Ruth like a dad playing wiffle ball with his son. That if someday the NBA implements a 4-point shot, you immediately have to look at Steph Curry and say, yeah, he was a good shooter for his time, but he couldn't cut it today. His era was easier. If he played today, he'd just be an average shooter. In that world, no one will ever hold the crown for long, because time will pass, and modern athletes inevitably age into ancient ones. So isn't the fairest way to evaluate these players to look at what they did in the context of their eras? I think so, because I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Everybody had era-specific advantages. Great players are great because they exploit them. Alright, let's try to get some context. I think that Russell's 11 championships actually hurt him historically in this way. It's such an incomprehensible number that it just lends itself to people trying to poke holes in it or find ways to discredit him. 11 is just too big of a number, right? Jordan has 6, and we know the stories of all 6. We can remember who LeBron and Kobe beat to win their championships and what it meant to them. It's hard to do that with 11, and it's even harder to do that when they happened in the ballpark of 60 years ago. I briefly touched on 62, so here's a little more context for you. After 8 straight titles for Boston, Wilt and the 1967 76ers put the league on notice. They won a league record 68 games and disrupted the Celtics' streak in just 5 games. They put the ribbon on their season weeks later when they won the championship. And then, the very next year, the 76ers entered the playoffs with the best record in the league. Wilt led the league in assists and won the MVP. When they met the Celtics in the Eastern Finals, they racked up a 3-1 lead. And then, as player-coach of the Celtics, Bill Russell engineered the greatest comeback basketball had ever seen, becoming the first team to ever overcome a 3-1 deficit. Wilt did not attempt a field goal in the second half of Game 7. Russell did damn near everything to ice the game in its final minute. 1966 was Red Auerbach's last year. He began the season by telling his contemporaries that this was their last shot to beat him. After defeating the Oscar Robertson Royals and Wilt 76ers, the Lakers and the Celtics went the distance in the finals. In Game 7, an inspired Russell helped fend off an intense Lakers rally in the final period, tallying 25 points and 32 rebounds to send his coach out as a winner. Go look up his teams. You'll see that 1965 was Russell's best team. You might think it was easier back then, though, because Russell was playing against a bunch of nobodies. And you've got me there. He only had to go through Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Hal Greer, Dolph Schayes, Oscar Robertson, Willis Reed, Nate Thurmond, Walt Frazier, and Bob Pettit. You know, a bunch of nobodies. The fact is that the weak era argument
plumbers and firemen, right? Asshole.
Is more often than not an excuse made by people who want to discredit a player from before their time who can't be bothered to look them up and try to learn about them. Listen, I know it's crazy to think about how long basketball's been around. I know it's crazy trying to convince you that the first truly great player from the game's first truly great era was the greatest of them all. The odds that the first model was the best model are astronomical. It doesn't make it impossible, though. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that 8 teams actually made the league tougher, or that players from back then were just as good as they are today. And I don't have to. We're looking at this in context. The league was chock full of Hall of Famers and all-time greats, and the Celtics played in enough Game 7s that any rational observer would look at it and see that it wasn't easy for Russell. But wait, there's more. Because it wasn't just that Russell played in a weak era. He played with the better team every single year. If you didn't know, I've actually already made the case that Wilt was the greatest basketball player of all time. And I said this: Bill Russell consistently had better...
Was Bill Russell left-handed? Because I'm seeing a lot of left-handed blocks right now. Let me know in the comment section.
...teammates than Wilt Chamberlain did. That's as good as a fact to me, and I will maintain it even when I make the case for Bill Russell. So here I am saying it. Bill Russell often had the best team in the NBA. And that makes sense, right? You don't win one championship without a great team, let alone 11. And Russell had a great team, a legendary coach, and talented teammates. Bob Cousy was the league's second MVP ever, and John Havlicek helped lead the Celtics to 2 more titles in the 70s. Plus, guys like Casey Jones, Bill Sharman, Frank Ramsey, Tommy Heinsohn, and Sam Jones are all in the Hall of Fame. But is it that simple? Like I said earlier, the players voted on MVPs during those days, and Russell won 5 of them. So, however stacked his team might have felt to the rest of the...
I think he is left-handed. I just saw him throw that full court pass with his left hand like a quarterback.
...the league, they still acknowledge that Russell made it all work. And look at those Hall of Famers that Russell played with and how many championships they won. There's no way the Hall of Fame could leave these guys out, right? So was it that Russell was actually playing alongside a 12-man roster of Monstars? Or were those guys Hall of Famers because they played alongside Bill Russell? I would argue that he had the better team all those years because those teams all had Bill Russell. He never cared about anything other than winning. He put himself and his teammates in position to win, time and time and time again. I know I keep repeating the number, but 11 championships. That's not a fluke. That's a team galvanized by a once-in-a...
Dude, he might be. I think he's ambidextrous. Now he's doing hooks with his right hand. I'm not saying a player can't have a left and a right hand, but like naturally, is he left or right or ambidextrous? He might be amp, man.
In a generation talent and a once-in-a-lifetime leader. There's no evidence that indicates that the Celtics would have enjoyed anything close to the amount of successes they did without Russell. The year before they got Russ, they were 39-33. The year after he retired, they were 34-48. Russell would throw up before big games throughout his career. It was a ritual that his teammates initially found unsettling, but eventually came to find a serene confidence in. Bill was setting an example. Their best player, despite all of the honors that he had won, and all of the champagne he had drank, still cared that much about winning. That's maybe the most impressive thing to me. He never rested on his laurels, never used past accomplishments as justifications for anything. He withstood the test of time and the temptations of self-interest. He never stopped caring, and so his teammates didn't either. So when Sam Jones hits a game winner, or Tom Heinsohn explodes in a playoff game, don't take credit away from them, but know that they are the ones who will tell you that it was Russell who made it all possible. Please don't make me keep going. Fine. Bill Russell was cut from his high school JV team in his sophomore season. He was raw, lacked fundamentals, and was driven by unrefined passion alone. Then, as a junior and senior, he led the team to back-to-back state titles. Colleges didn't care though, and he didn't receive a single offer from any college. That is, until a scout from the University of San Francisco saw him and offered him a scholarship. In his 3 varsity years at USF, Russell helped turn a relatively unremarkable team into a perennial powerhouse. He went 71-8 and won 2 national championships. His junior year, the Dons started the season unranked. By the end of the season, they were the #1 team in the country and the national champions. In his senior year, the team went undefeated and carried the #1 ranking wire to wire. At one point, USF had a win streak of 55 games. Of the players on that team, only Casey Jones would go on to the NBA and, ironically, to play with Russell. Bill Russell is basketball Midas. Every team he touches turns to gold. And oh, by the way, Bill Russell's career coincided with the civil rights movement of the 1960s in a truly surreal way. He endured a disheartening amount of injustice during his career with a grace and pride that is worthy of remembrance in and of itself. But he did more than that, using his position to challenge the establishments around him and effect change. He was a leading voice at the Muhammad Ali Summit in Cleveland. He was at the March on Washington and in attendance for Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. He didn't attend his own Hall of Fame induction because he thought that someone like Chuck Cooper deserved to be the first African American inductee rather than himself. He was denied rooms in hotels and service.
Dude, that's selfless. That's selfless right there. Respect.
In restaurants on basketball road trips. And so he refused to play. When Red Auerbach retired after the '66 season, Russell became the first black head coach in any of the 4 major American sports. While he was playing for the Celtics, vandals broke into his suburban.
So I just said he was the first African American coach in the NBA, but that's across all major sports at the time. North America, even better.
Home, spray painted racist graffiti on the walls, broke his trophies, and defecated on his bed. His contributions to the civil rights movement are as important and notable as any other athlete. He helped light the torch that athletes today continue to carry. Does this necessarily make him the greatest player of all time? No. But when you think about what he was able to accomplish, I don't know how you could be anything but awestruck. What is greatness? It's a question worth discussing, even if there are multiple answers with equal validity. One answer might be this, that greatness is the absence of potential. Bill Russell couldn't control how tall he was, or how much muscle mass his body could support, how fast he could run, how quickly he could jump. There are a host of things that might hinder or accentuate an individual's potential. Greatness is when, at the end of the road, You can look at that individual and say with certainty, there is no more potential. Every ounce got drained. Every possibility exhausted. The tank got emptied, and the fight got fought. There was simply nothing left. That's a form of greatness worth celebrating. Bill Russell didn't dominate basketball. He conquered it. He ruled a sport for 13 years. Any uprisings or revolutions were succinctly quelled. There is perhaps no term more aptly suited for the totality of what he created than the word dynasty. He was the greatest defender basketball has ever seen. He steered basketball into the modern era. He created a culture from scratch. His loyalties did not belong to fans or the media or to Boston. His loyalty belonged to the Celtics. There is such a thing as a Platonic idea, named after the philosopher Plato. Take, for instance, a chair. You know what a chair is. You have in your mind the idea of a chair. They might look different, be made out of different material, and serve different purposes. But a chair is recognizable because you have the Platonic idea of a chair. You might have heard this term used to describe friendships. A platonic friendship is one centered around the very essence of friendship itself.
Yes.
Not romance or sexual gratification or convenient utility, but
Correct.
Simply because you enjoy being in that person's company. Bill Russell, more than anyone, unlocked the platonic idea of basketball. And I think in a big way, that's why we love sports. Sports is one of the most organic and compelling storytelling devices that we have ever found. Sports tell a story, and in that story, we hope to find pieces of ourselves. In the Platonic idea of basketball, we find things like compassion, selflessness, solidarity, resiliency, and triumph. There's one last thing that sums it all up: the 1969 finals. It's Russell's last year, and the Celtics are running on fumes. They finished the season 48-34, their worst record since they drafted him. Still, they roll through the East and find themselves matched up against the Lakers, with Elgin Baylor, Jerry West, and Wilt Chamberlain. The Celtics are massive underdogs. Finally, Russell's most bitter rivals will reach the top of the mountain and send him out a loser. But Boston won't go down without a fight. The series goes to 7 games. Every game but one is decided in the single digits. Russell's scoring days are over. These days, he leads his team by cleaning the boards and setting up his teammates. In Game 7, his swan song, in Los Angeles, Bill Russell and the Celtics did what they always did. They found a way, and they won. Here, after cementing himself as the greatest basketball player of all time, is the Platonic idea of basketball.
Yes, I'm here with Bill Russell. Bill, this must have been a great win for you. Exactly.
Damn, that's emotion. That's emotion right there. Setting in. Yes, sir. That was all emotion right there. That shit hit me in my heart. Cause yeah, that's emotion. A compelling argument for Bill Russell as the greatest of all time. Now, I was during the watching the video, I was writing down some notes, because sometimes in that moment there's things that I say I want to talk about this after my closing remarks, and I don't pause the video, and then I forget to bring up some things. So now I'm trying to get in a habit of writing notes down as I'm watching it, so I can make sure I revisit that point and talk about it. So one thing I didn't know that they said is that Bill Russell guarded all 5 positions. I didn't know that. I thought he was just more or less holding down the paint and the wings, but all 5 positions. And after seeing more footage of Bill Russell, I believe it. The dude was an Olympian. Watching him stride across that court with them long ass legs at top speeds while handling the basketball, incredible. And then when he was switched off and guarding the smaller players out on the perimeter, he wasn't no slouch. He was keeping up with them fools. And even if you were able to curl around him, the dude got the long arms of the law and just snatched that joint. So I didn't know that. Now, that MVP season that they mentioned, which they asked Will, they asked Bill, what was your favorite MVP season? So he copped the MVP during Wilt's 50-point per game season and Oscar's triple-double season. And like they said, at the time, players were voting. So what better group of people to ask than the ones that are right there in the trenches and on the battlefield? They know what's up. So that's extremely impressive that he pulled out that MVP with the astronomical things Wilt and Robertson were doing offensively and from an all-around perspective as far as Oscar goes. Never lost the game 7. That's something you can take with you the distance. That's impressive. Never losing the game 7. Incredible. And when they came back down, they were the first team to ever come back down from a 3-1 deficit. And him stifling Wilt in that game 7 was absolutely incredible. Because we know, like they said, opposite ends of the coin, man. Him and Wilt were opposites in that perspective, where Wilt was a offensive juggernaut. And he was a defensive juggernaut. And he put the clamps down on Wilt Chamberlain. And this also segues into the other part, which I found. I didn't know this about Wilt. I didn't know that you had these players, Kareem, I think Jerry West. I think they mentioned Jerry West. I'm not completely sure. Anyways, these other great players straight up clowning Wilt and calling Wilt out for being, not just being like, okay, he doesn't always make his teammates better or doesn't do it often, but this guy is no shit. A stat padding, selfish son of a bitch. Damn. I didn't know that about Wilt. Maybe part of me wants to give him some kind of a benefit of doubt that maybe he was just misunderstood on some level, because I do think that happens sometimes. But you got a bunch of people calling him out for. They said this dude would actually go over to the score tables and tell him to fix the stats. I didn't know Wilt Chamberlain was really on it like that, because there was an interview or something that I had seen in the past in reference to his 100-point game, and Wilt Chamberlain was saying that he legitimately felt bad about his 100-point game because it just was just so unprecedented and dominant that with every point he scored, he just like didn't feel it was right on some level. But he's like, yeah, they kept feeding me the ball and just kept taking advantage of the situation until the final buzzer went off or until I was out, whatever. But it was something along those lines. So I was like, oh man, look at him just feeling bad about that 100. So humble. But what? Damn. I had no idea. And then the comment about, take it for what it is in his era. How great were you in your era? How productive were you in your era? How dominant? Or as he said, hey, 11 championships in 13 years, that's more than dominant. That's conquering. Conquering. Not King the Conqueror, Bill Russell the Conqueror. But even Bill Russell, I feel like, had a skill set and ability where his style of play, or just him as a player in whole, transcends time. I think he would have played phenomenally in the 90s and even the 2000s. I feel like Bill Russell would have been a prominent NBA player. No question about it. I truly feel that. He transcends time and eras, in my opinion. Hey, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think about it. What do you think of Bill Russell as a player? Where do you have Bill Russell ranked? Was a lot of this information that we just have been exposed to, how much of it was new to you? How much of it did you know? What can you add to Bill Russell that they didn't mention here that I probably don't know? And what did you take away from everything? We'd love to hear your opinion. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, check out our other playlists, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for watching. We out.